the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to talk about how a divorce led her to re examine herself. It brought her to a point of becoming an author and a divorce attorney with a heart. Please help me in welcoming Sonia Frontera. Sonia, thank you so much for joining me here today. And I know this is the beginning of the podcast, but we have already been giggling for a couple minutes. So thank you so much for that. I would love it if you would tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. And thanks for having me, Claudia. Thanks for the warm intro. So I am an attorney by trade. I'm a Jersey girl. Let me start with that. I'm a Jersey girl and I'm an attorney by trade. I've been practicing law for 26 years. And now I'm pivoting more towards what I love to do, which is inspiring and empowering people. And I'm just transitioning more into writing as well as getting ready for when COVID is over, start giving seminars and workshops live, which is what I really enjoy.
I will enjoy that as well. It does seem like we are stepping our way slowly to that point. So, since you mentioned COVID, let's start with that because I know one of the things that you know a lot about and talk a lot about is how COVID has affected relationships. So, will you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and the lawyers are claiming that it's making them rich. What can I say? And ever since the lockdowns, the news cycles were going crazy about people divorcing because of COVID, and I think a lot of people freaked out unnecessarily because of it. But definitely, COVID has created some challenges for couples, just being together, having more togetherness than we're used to, and it has become very hard for some people to navigate, and it takes a lot of compromise, but I don't think we were ready to deal with it. So there are reports of divorce going up because of the pandemic, but I think some other couples are doing well. One thing is very disconcerting about COVID is that it has increased the incidence of domestic violence. And the lockdown is really a ripe ground. It's a petri dish for abuse.
I completely agree with you. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because that was going to be my follow-up question or talking point with you, because I actually used to work at a domestic violence nonprofit. And that was one of the things that we saw was that safer at home wasn't really safer for everybody. So what would you say to the people who are still trying to navigate through that unsafe environment?
Get help as soon as you can. Even though the pandemic has affected a lot of things, the domestic violence organizations are still in operation. I know the local ones that I'm familiar with in my area, they were sending women to hotels because the shelters were closed, and the hotlines were available. In fact, I volunteered and they sent me away because they had enough people. So there is help out there. It's free, it's confidential, and take advantage of it.
I love that you pointed out free and confidential. And I know in Colorado, I'm not sure if this is United States wide, but we have a new law here that employers have to give time off for certain domestic abuse situations, such as going to court or speaking to a therapist or things like that. Do you know if you guys have that there, or are we just doing something right here in Colorado?
Let me start by saying bravo. Yes, I don't think we do, but I think it should be a matter of corporate responsibility. People should not be mandated. And I know that domestic violence is very disruptive to working environments, and corporations will be smart to take the initiative to make these things work out and it's typically women more often than men. They lose a lot of time because of injuries, perhaps, because of court dates. So it makes sense to support people who are going through these situations before having to be mandated by the legislature.
Absolutely. I think everything works a little better when we can do it on our own or take on that responsibility before being forced to do it, generally speaking. So you are a divorce attorney, but you call yourself a divorce lawyer with a heart. So tell me what got you into this field.
Well, actually, it was just happenstance. It's how adversity just runs the course of your life. I have to say, I went to law school while I was in my abusive marriage. I got married when I was 24 years old, found out within 24 hours that I had married an abusive, psychologically abusive man. I wasn't like bouncing off the walls, but it was an abusive situation. And when I got out of law school, I went to law school because I felt my life was at a dead end, which was the best thing that I have done for myself. And when I got out of school, right up months after I divorced, I started working in family court. And it was like the most toxic thing. I just went through, just my divorce in March. And then come September, I was going through everybody else's divorces in court. And it was such a toxic thing. I said, never again. I don't want to deal with this. But then after practicing for many years, I got sick. I developed chronic daily migraines. And I used to be a litigator for government. And you just can't operate like that. I was disabled for a full year. I was out of work and I had to do something because it was just not viable to practice the way I used to. So I decided to end my career in government. And a friend who was a collaborative divorce said, you should be doing collaborative divorce, which is a different kind of divorce. It's more amicable, it's gentler, and it's out of court. And I had never heard of it, but it sounded like a good opportunity for me. And I have pursued it. And I think it's a great move. And it's something that more people should be looking into because it's a great alternative to litigation.
I have never heard of it before either, but just by the name, it sounds way more peaceful because my dad was an attorney. He's retired now. But divorce was one of the things that he steered clear of because, it's not really a joke, but the common joke is like, everybody leaves a divorce unhappy and they hate their own attorney, the other attorney, their ex-spouse. Everybody hates everybody at the end of it. So tell me about what you do that makes that different and better.
Well, I think it makes a big difference when your attorney understands what you're going through. And let me start by saying a lot of attorneys are happily married people. They have no idea what you're going through. They think you're nuts. Many attorneys think their clients are nuts. And they don't have that insight into what their clients are going through, the pain, the uncertainty, and they don't have that empathy necessarily. I think attorneys who have been divorced themselves can be better equipped and kinder and gentler and make the process a lot easier for the clients. And I think that's what sets me apart. I'm a very empathic person and I know what people are going through.
Does that make it more difficult for you being an empath? Do you take on sometimes that pain or that uncertainty that your clients are going through?
It's really hard to divorce yourself, no pun intended, from that. But I think that when you demonstrate to your client that you are empowering them, that you're supporting them, that you're on their side, you're not there just to make money, and they feel more secure. So I think that brings them to a different place, and that's what I really like to do. Bring people to a place of hope where they realize that, this is a very difficult and painful stage of my life, but we'll get through this. And then you can start over with a clean slate and life will be different. And I think that makes a huge difference.
And you personally have done just that as well, because I know that you left the abusive marriage and you have now been happily married for, I believe, 14 years or more than that.
It is now 15.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about how it was for you personally to trust again and to get back into the dating and relationship world.
It's funny because I had no desire to date when I got out of my marriage because it was such an oppressive marriage, and I had someone on my ass all the time, right? You walk through that door after going to work all day, go to school all night, and you just don't know what he's going to come up with. And I just had no desire for any of that. I just wanted to be me. And it's just the theme of my life. I am here to be me. And here I am living with someone who's trying to suppress me and prevent me from being myself and expressing. So I decided I'm going to enjoy myself and I'm going to do all those things that I would have liked to do that I couldn't do while I was married. So I was in no rush. I got to a point where, after 4 years, I thought, nah, maybe it's time. And well, I put myself out there. I met a couple of morons, but you know, I didn't do that much dating. I found my husband. I realized this one's a good one. I was not looking to get married. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend. I was looking more for a companion to go travel with. And I just happened to land myself a good one this time, and I wasn't going to let him go.
Good for you. I was able to do the same thing, luckily, and we have hit 16 years. So we're right
Congrats.
there together.
Awesome.
I know, right? And I went through a similar struggle as you. What I would like for you to share, if you don't mind, is what was different about you entering the abusive relationship that set you on a path? And again, not your fault. None of it was your fault. But what do you think was different about you then and then in your new relationship that you found that amazing person that deserved you?
I think and I recommend this to all my readers and anyone who cares to listen, that you really need to take emotional inventory and try to understand how you ended up in that situation. And for me, I think I ended up getting married so young because I was listening to those messages that say you need to get married and you need to get married young. I'm from Puerto Rico, and it's a very conservative culture. And actually, for me, going to school in the mainland was a little bit of a scandal, and some parents would say to my dad, "Well, my daughter left from the house to the church, the altar." And I wasn't going for any of that, but I felt that I needed to get married, and I got married young. I married my first serious boyfriend without realizing that that was not the right path. I should have been more examined. And when I went through that process of being comfortable being on my own and enjoying my own company and finding pleasure in doing those things that made me happy without any guilt, then I realized that I can recouple with someone in a healthier way, as opposed to on a need base or a lack mentality that I need to have a partner. And I think that's where a lot of people fall, what a lot of people fall for, that destines them to end up in relationships that are unhappy and unhealthy.
You left a lot there that I want to unpack. I'm going to try to remember it all. First, I want to start with you were from a or are from a very conservative family. Did that have any difficulty for you in getting a divorce from your first husband?
Totally. And it actually led to what I have recently learned is called spiritual abuse. And people ask me, well, didn't you know that he was abusive? How long were you dating this person? And I dated for 3 years. We had a wonderful relationship. And within 24 hours of the wedding, boom, I'm here with this person who is abusive and insulting and demeaning. And that is one thing that abusers do. They realize when they think they get you, that's when they show you their true colors. And he knew that being Catholic, having had a church wedding, I couldn't divorce. And that's one thing I struggled with because I am deeply religious. I went to Catholic school. I didn't want to burn in hell. And I didn't want to be shunned from my community of faith. So it was really, really difficult. And he made it even more difficult by, just underscoring that I could not divorce because I am Catholic.
I'm so glad that you said spiritual abuse. And I have never heard that term before But I know exactly what you mean because I had a family member who went through a very similar, excuse me, situation as you, where the abuser kind of locked into the victim or the survivor, thinking, well, once I marry her, she'll never divorce me because she's a devout Greek Orthodox. She's, a member of the church. She has a very high ranking there. So she'll never be able to get divorced. And, I thought of that as abuse at the time, but I've never heard a name for it. Would you say that that's very common, particularly in something like Catholicism?
Yes, it is. And also other Christian denominations that are even more conservative than Catholics. And not only do we have to struggle with spiritual abuse from our partners, but many of us don't get the support from the clergy that we need. And in fact, I learned the term spiritual abuse from another author whose very own pastor said, if you divorce, the devil wins. And there you are, right?
Right.
What do you do with that? Whose side are you on? The devil's?
Are you still Catholic?
Oh, absolutely. The Catholic Church is still my home. I flirted with the Episcopal Church because it's Catholic light and it's more tolerant and accepting and warm. So I kind of gravitate towards any spiritual environment that is supportive of my belief system and where I feel welcome and where I feel like I can grow spiritually.
So another point that you mentioned was the people who, and I don't want to say women, but often it is women. So I'll just say women. The women who a lot of times accept less than or have that lack mentality. So what can we do as a society to build people up so that they don't end up in these situations?
I think we need to start inner with the inner work and then go from within to the outside because we are accepting these messages right from society, but we need to discern ourselves what messages are true, which ones serve you and which do not. And once we have that mind expansion, from there we can start thinking differently, teaching our children differently and expressing differently with our friends as well, because these are pressures that we all get from all sides, and we need to make that internal decision, what is right for us and what is not, and make our personal decisions from that perspective, that point of power, as opposed to subservience to other people's messages.
I think codependence is often another issue that victims or survivors deal with. They get latched into that abuser or that bad relationship, and they feed off of it to some point. So, how can those people learn to walk away?
I think the key to everything is empowerment. First, awareness, and then self empowerment. And that is something that I did instinctively for myself. I worked on myself. I worked on strengthening myself so that I would not give the weight to the abuser's behavior or the importance that I otherwise would have. And the way I like to put it is like I had this person being verbally abusive or saying things that were very hurtful. And, let's say, like he liked to say, you're worth less than the dirt under my fingernails. And I knew I wasn't worth less than the dirt under his fingernails. But I think somebody who's been exposed to that kind of message growing up and may have self-esteem issues might internalize that and go from there. But you need to switch gears and say, wait a minute, I'm not worth less than the dirt under someone's fingernail. I'm a worthy human being, and I choose to not give importance to that. It's like if a little 3-year-old tells you you're stupid, what are you going to do?
Laugh it off.
You're going to laugh it off. So you need to bring yourself to that point where you can just let it slide and strengthen yourself until you have the strength to get out. Because very often, and the statistics show that in abusive relationships, it can take a survivor up to 7 attempts to get out before they finally leave. So you need to strengthen yourself to increase the odds that you're going to be able to get out and not return to your abuser and make it a final step.
And I have some people where I'm counting as they get closer to 7. I know it's an average,
Mm.
but you're so right. And it can be very frustrating as a family member or a supporter of somebody who does go back. Do you have any advice to those people?
Yes, and in fact, I just recently published a booklet, a very quick read on that. It's called "Stop the Hurt: The Truth About Domestic Violence Everyone Needs to Know," and I have a special section for people who suspect or know that someone they love is in an abusive relationship, and we just want to get them out, right? Most people, and they come most likely from a good place trying to be helpful, but in fact, they're making things worse. When you suspect someone is being hurt, you need to approach things delicately and let them know that you're here to listen, not to give opinions, not to tell them what to do, because you're depriving that person of the autonomy, just like the abuser is. And you need to listen with compassion, say you will be there for whatever you need, and give them the tools they need. First of all, let them know you're there, because very often these people don't think they have an exit strategy. That's what happened to me. I had no place to go, and the
Mhm.
abusers know it. To the degree that someone in an abusive relationship knows that someone has their back, that they're going to be there for them, that right there is a big part of the equation. They're going to feel instantly stronger, because they know that they're not alone in this.
And it's something where we have to check ourselves because we want to project our own wishes and desires on those individuals. And, we just know they'd be better if they could get out. And even if that's true, they have to be ready and it has to be on their timetable.
Yes, it has to be on their terms.
Absolutely. Well, you talked about writing there and you talked about it earlier. I want to talk about some of your books because not only are you a divorce lawyer, but you help people figure out if divorce is even the right thing. So, will you talk a little bit about the book that we were discussing before we started? I'm going to let you say the title so I can just grin while you say it. Talk a little bit about your inspiration to write that book.
Right. My first book is entitled "Solve the Divorce Dilemma. Do you keep your husband or do you post him on Craigslist?" And I wrote this book for women who were struggling with a divorce decision, because it was the hardest thing for me. I knew this marriage wasn't right, but because of a number of different reasons, like a lack of exit strategy and support, and no place to go, it was, and religion, of course, it was very hard for me to make and carry out that decision. So, because that was the hardest aspect of the divorce for me, I really wanted to help people so they didn't have to go through what I went through. And I wanted to be a writer since I was in high school. And I just kind of turned away from my dream. And I finally did so after I was able to work for myself in flexible hours, and I had more control over my time and schedule. And I really thought this was an excellent opportunity to share my experience, personal and professional, so that I can guide people along the process so that they can make the decision that's right for them. Because you have the answers to every query you have in life. And you need to learn how to find the answers and extract them from within, and go through that journey of personal transformation so that you can go from this difficult experience to make the decision that's right for you and start all over with a clean slate.
So, we don't want to give away all of the book because we want people to go to Amazon or other places and buy it. But what would you say is going to be one of the top tips for somebody who isn't sure what to do, but they're ready to reach for that book?
I think the most important thing you need to do is realize that you are in a situation that you're not comfortable with, but that you have the tools to turn things around. And by turning things around, it could be either in or out of the relationship. And you need to do the homework. It is all personal work, right? It's not something that the attorney does not divorce you, right? It's not the attorney. It's something that you do. It's internal. And I like to guide people through that process so they can, first of all, decide, first of all, understand how they ended up in this marriage. What were the patterns, the thought and behavior patterns that led you there? Develop that awareness and use it to also understand what keeps you there, what you are bringing into this relationship that might be contributing to the strife, and see if you can work things out with your partner. And if you can, give it a shot. I think, to avoid divorce regret, because statistics show that between 32 and 50% of people who file for divorce end up regretting you. Make sure you don't take this decision lightly. Don't do this in haste or under the influence of anger or negative emotions. And if you're not in an abusive situation, that is, because of course, if you are going through abuse, and that's something that I cover in all my books, is find out if you are, and if you think you're in an abusive relationship, get help. And if not, try to work things out. And if you are convinced after giving it your best and exploring whether your partner is fit to make things work, because if that's not the case, there's really no point in knocking yourself out, then end your marriage amicably, so that you can start all over again. Both of you would benefit by ending a relationship that is making you unhappy and bitter. And I don't leave it there. I really think part of what's really key about making your life work after divorce is going forward, not just with a clean slate, but just explore those attachments that you still have to the relationship and clear yourself of them. Clear yourself by forgiving yourself and your spouse and anyone who might have contributed to the unrest in your relationship. And then start pursuing those things that make you happy, which is something we should start doing at any point in our lives, so that we can create a life that's on purpose and fulfilling, so you don't go and repeat the same mistakes with the next partner and so on, because so many people end up marrying the same person in different bodies over and over again.
Or dating them, which was my issue previously. So I totally get what you're saying. And I love that it's kind of a workbook almost of getting you to the point of deciding what is best. Now, we know there are so many people out there who struggle to do that inner look and be willing to really be honest with themselves and talk about or think about what they need to do and what they need to work on to be better. How do we get through to those people? And this is a question I ask a lot because I really want to, there's no magic answer, I guess, but I really want to reach those people who are still struggling even to take that step.
Yeah, and it's natural. I think many people are afraid to look within because they're afraid of what they're going to find, that they're not going to like it. And you need to practice self-compassion. You're doing this for yourself. You're not doing it for your partner. You don't do it for anyone else. And you owe it to yourself because you deserve to be happy. And this is such a key step to be happy. The Greek said, a life, Socrates, I believe, a life, an unexamined life is not worth living. And you need to examine it because it's liberating. It is the portal to your happiness and your freedom. So it's definitely worth taking that chance of looking in. And if you're afraid, work with someone, work with a therapist. You don't have to go it alone. Right? Find that support, that non-judge, because I think one of the worst things is that we're hard on ourselves.
Mhm.
And sometimes the people in our lives don't give us the support we need. They're projecting their beliefs, their insecurities onto you. go to a neutral third party who can help you sort through these things.
I completely agree with you. And I have given the therapy thumbs up many times on this podcast. I know therapy isn't for everyone, or some people aren't ready to do therapy. So go see a coach, go see, any, as you said, neutral third party. So we have our options in this book of we can either keep him or sell him on Craigslist. There's probably a pretty big market on Craigslist. If we decide to keep him, where do we go? Does the book lead us through some steps that we can take for ourselves and for the relationship?
Well, yes, and even though this book is labeled as a relationship book, it really gives you strategies for quality living and to live an empowered life. And that's really what I want to do, inspire people to live empowered lives, and that is done through self-awareness, self-expression, and self-love. And in the book, I encourage all the readers, whether they leave or they stay, to take care of themselves. First of all, do the inner work, right? The awareness part of it, and do the journaling, and do those things that bring you in touch with those thought and behavior patterns that might have led you to unhappy situations now and in the future. Because if you don't come to terms with what you do to yourself, what your social beliefs, your internal limiting beliefs are doing to you, if you don't come to terms with that, you'll never live a happy and fulfilling life. So that's the self-awareness part of it that everyone needs to go through. And then the self-expression. Very often we are unexpressed in our relationships, and part of the inner work is finding out, who am I, not in a relationship but as an individual. And once you discover who you are and you want to nurture yourself, even if you're in a relationship, I strongly believe that we are in a relationship, in a marriage, to bring out the best in one another and to make the couple greater than the sum of the parts. And once you do that work, and once you realize who you are, and you seek to fulfill yourself and your purpose, you can create a wonderful future with your partner. And especially if the partner is part of that exploration. I think it's if you're not in an abusive relationship, your partner should be doing the same kind of inner work so that you can enhance your relationship. And that's why I created the second book. We can talk about that later, but just sticking with this theme, that's the self-expression, and then the
Mhm.
self-love. We need to learn to love ourselves, and that is really going to help with a lot of the different issues we are going to encounter in life. And I like to say that self-love or self-care is more than a bubble bath. It's
Mhm.
more about self-acceptance and compassion and nurturing ourselves in mind, body, and spirit. And so I give strategies for staying healthy, and and body wise, and other strategies to nurture your spirit, whether it's through your devotionals, your journaling, taking little baby steps that make you more content in your everyday life. And I think that's something that serves everyone, whether you are married or single, looking to date, or recovering from a divorce. This is some work that we all benefit from doing, and it's not that hard. It can actually be a lot of fun.
I am so glad that you said self-care is more than just taking a bubble bath, because I think so many people do think that, oh, I just go for a quick walk, I just hop in the bathtub. And while those things can be relaxing and part of an overall self-care routine, I think a lot of people do um, misidentify what self-care really is. So I'm glad you pointed that out. We're not going to go down that road because that could take us forever. And I want to get to your second book, and I want you to talk a little bit about how that takes you from selling or not selling on Craigslist forward.
Yeah, so I wrote the second book because men were reading the book, and in the publishing industry they tell you that you need to niche down and that you can't have such a big audience, so you pick women, because of course I'm a woman and men don't read these things. Men are not interested. And I was so shocked that men were picking up the book and reading it and writing to me, and they were complaining, well, this is too biased for women. It's like, well, what do you expect? This is a book for women. All the examples are about things husbands do, right? And I was inspired to write an expanded version that men can read and that couples can do with each other, so they can do together, which is going to bring them closer. So that's why I wrote Relationship Solutions: Effective Strategies to Heal Your Heart and Create the Happiness You Deserve. So I added some content that would be useful also for men, and I think it's been very helpful. I'm getting good feedback on that.
Now, this might be a crazy question, but have you had couples who read the book together and decide to amicably divorce because that's what they have determined is the best thing together by reading the book?
No one has said that. No, I can say that I had a woman tell me she was afraid to read the first book because she was afraid it would make her leave her husband, but that it actually helped her, and they're together. So they did not divorce. So you don't need to be afraid of the possibility of divorce. You just need to look at it and explore it with an open mind. But I do hear from people that that the book, Relationship Solutions, make them appreciate their partners more.
So that would be the one you would recommend for couples trying to strengthen or reignite their relationship.
Yes, because it's something that it's not for one sex, it's for both. And I think the questions in the reflections included in the book are useful, and it'd be really interesting to just sit together and say, hey, what is it that made you get married? What were those things? And then that can be a conversation starter, and helps you gain more insights as to the mindset of your partner. I think that's very useful, because very often we're making assumptions about our partners that may or may not be true.
I completely agree with you. What would you say to, we'll just say a woman who wants to save her relationship and it's not an abusive relationship, but she's having trouble getting her husband to engage and participate in the strengthening? Is that something that can be saved in your opinion, or maybe not?
I think it takes two to tango. A relationship is a party of two. And you can't save a marriage when the other party doesn't give it the importance that it deserves. And if your partner is unwilling or unable, because some people just don't have it in them, or in like a case like an abusive person like my ex-husband who thinks he's right and you're wrong, you need to come to terms at some point to what is the truth in your case, and accept it, because just you're not doing yourselves any favor by staying in a relationship that is past its expiration date. And that is a hard truth we may need to accept, but in the end it might be liberating and lead you to taking a step that is going to make your life better, and possibly your spouse, because if your spouse doesn't care about the relationship, there's no point in staying in it.
So if we decide, not we, but the reader decides to take the path of, you know what, this isn't right, it's time to move on, without giving legal advice, because I know you don't want to throw that out there, in general or in mass, but what steps would you encourage that somebody take if that is the path that they are choosing?
I think it's a good idea to have a conversation with an attorney, have a consultation so you can understand the process and what's involved, and you can start preparing for it, because there's some steps you need to take to make the process smoother. And I think that is a good step to take in the beginning. And I think the other step is empowering yourself. Just start taking those steps that you would like to take as a single person, and start heading in that direction, because it is empowering, it is liberating, and I think it makes the process a lot smoother.
I know that one of the things you mentioned as well, that choosing the wrong divorce attorney can be just as terrible as maybe the wrong person that you were married to. So, how do we choose the right attorney if we are going down the divorce path?
We need to be very careful. First of all, it's important to work with an attorney who works in family law. You know, you don't want to be working with your best friend's cousin, Vinny, who just got out of school and has been doing real estate closings. You need to work with somebody who is familiar with family law and can assist you properly and give you the right advice. And you also want to work with someone you feel comfortable with, because there's some attorneys that are very litigious, and they have a different path, and and their mindset does not work with yours, and you need to make sure you're on the same page. If you want to settle, if you want to have an amicable divorce, don't go with someone who's a litigator and just gets his or her jollies and puts his kids through school by engaging you in a never-ending war in court. So I recommend asking people, how many of your cases have gone to trial? Because that is very telling. The statistics show that more than 90%, and I think in New Jersey it's close to like 98% of cases settled. Settle before the divorce, settle instead of
Mhm,
going to court. So you don't want to be going to that 2%er
mhm.
and end up spending all this money. I heard from someone, not my client, whose attorney ended up, charging them $64,000 for her only. Um, and these were people who just had to divide their debt because there wasn't any money in there. So you need to make sure that attorney you work with is has a similar style and is willing to be strongly advocate for you, but without being overly combative. So you need, or if you think your spouse is going to be overly combative and try to hide things and try to take advantage and overreach, then you need somebody who's a strong litigator, or a strong advocate, not
Mhm.
necessarily litigator, somebody with a good settlement mindset that will get you the best outcome for you.
I think that is fantastic advice. And I liken it to a time that we have talked about. It's okay to kind of date therapists. It's okay to go on a first date with several therapists until you find the right one. It's also okay to date attorneys, not literally, but go to those consultations until you find the right one. Like you said, somebody that you're comfortable with and who's on the same page.
Yes, because picking the wrong attorney can be absolutely deadly. And then it's really hard to get rid of them when you get to the point where you're really dissatisfied. This person is making your life hell. Then it could be very late, too late to start switching attorneys, right? It's more costly to start over. So it's better to get it right, and get a recommendation from other people. Try to find somebody who is a recommendation from somebody who is happy with their attorney. And there's some really good attorneys out there. There's a lot of assholes out there, but there's some really nice people in the profession. Try to find them. And the best way to find a good attorney is word of mouth. Or check with a nonprofit who helps, let's say, women, and try to get a sense for who are the good attorneys in the family law arena, and they could guide you to someone who is compassionate and caring, that they're familiar with.
I would love for you to throw out your top piece of relationship advice.
You deserve to be happy. It's about being happy. You need to come to terms with the fact that you deserve to be happy. Sometimes we think marriage is supposed to be painful, that we're supposed to take whatever our partners inflict on us. No, you deserve to be happy, and that you have the power to create the happiness you deserve. It is your responsibility. It is not your partner's. Very often people also think you enter into marriage and that your spouse is supposed to make you happy. No, you make yourself happy, and you are not responsible for your partner's happiness either. So pursue the happiness you deserve.
I think that's perfect. And I'm going to take it back to a Wizard of Oz quote. I think I've used this before, but you've had the power all along, my dear. The power is within you to make yourself happy, and you cannot place that responsibility or burden on any other human being.
That is right.
We are going to take a quick left turn here before I let you go. We are going to talk tattoos for a quick second. I love tattoos. The audience loves tattoos. We often show tattoos on here. Now, I know a little secret about you. You don't have tattoos, but it's because you hate needles. So what I would love to put in front of you is, let's say, no needles involved. So magical tattoo time. What would you get if you had to get a tattoo? It's free. It doesn't hurt. You can hide it when you need to. What would you get?
You know, it's funny because I'm an animal lover. I'm an animal rescuer, and I'm a fan of the animal rescue site. And they had an article about animal tattoos to celebrate your pet. And I really thought about memorializing some of my beloved dogs, and they had some really cute ones. And I even thought about it, but because I suffer from migraines and I receive 31 Botox shots in the head every
Oh
4 months,
gosh.
there's no way I'm doing that. But if it was a magical tattoo, yes, I would get something, some really cute thing with a paw print to celebrate my doggies.
That's amazing. And I'm contemplating a similar tattoo right now, but I actually will get it. It will not have to be magical. I will tell you, technology is evolving, and the newer machines don't even make noise. So it does
Oh.
hurt, but yeah, it's not that old school where you go in and you hear all the buzzing. So there, I'm just saying, Sonia, there could be a chance.
You know
There
what?
could be
Okay.
a chance.
I have had henna tattoos I have had henna tattoos a few times when I travel. When I went to Turkey, I got this absolutely gorgeous abstract pattern. It was beautiful. I had it on my back, and then I went for a massage, and the oil transferred it to the chair at the spa.
So there went your beautiful henna. I just had a friend tell me she just went to Thailand and she got an old school tattoo where they actually use the sharpened bamboo.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, I mean, that's pretty badass, I have to say. She's a little firecracker. So she said it was actually less painful in a way. It was like kind of more overall, like long pain, but not the sharp pain. So I don't
Whatever that
know.
means. What does that even
Yeah, it
mean?
all hurts, right? It all
Yeah.
hurts. Except for the henna. That
No, that
should
doesn't
not
hurt.
should not
Doesn't
hurt.
even smell. The only thing is just black. You know, you don't have a choice of colors.
It'll be coming one day. I'm sure you'll have henna colors. There are also I think it's called momentary ink, where you can actually design your own tattoo, and it's like a 3-week press on tattoo. So you could test out your paw print that way.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? And I have done it when, going on vacation.
See, I'm gonna get you there. I'm gonna
Okay.
get you baby steps, baby steps,
Baby steps.
baby steps. Sonia, tell people where they can find you, where they can find your book. If they're in New Jersey and need a divorce, where they can look you up. Where can they find Sonia?
The best way to connect with me is by going to my website, www.soniafrontier.com. And there you will find links to all my social media and my Amazon page. You can see my books. and you get to see some of the podcasts I have appeared on. And most importantly, I have a surprise for your listeners. I would like to offer 5 lucky listeners a copy of the ebook of their choice. So you
That's
can go on my
amazing.
Amazon page, pick your book, and I don't know if you want them to contact you, or they can contact me at sonia@soniafrontera.com and claim your ebook.
Let's have them contact you right out. They'll probably contact me as well. So it can be a double contact.
And let's
Thank you.
ask them to tell us what is their takeaway.
Love
Let's
it.
make them work for it. What is your takeaway from this episode?
Yes. We want to know that you watched the whole thing or listened to the whole thing. What did you get from it? You're going to email us. We're going to post those email addresses and we're going to hear. And then 5 lucky viewers / listeners are going to get an ebook of their choice. That's amazing. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Sonia, you truly have been amazing. I really appreciate your time today. I love you, your energy, your spirit, and all the information and advice you gave out. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chloe. It's been a joy and a lot of fun.
I really hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Sonia as much as I did. I truly appreciate her stressing the point of it being our own responsibility to make ourselves happy. And how cool is it that she is offering 5 free ebooks to you guys? So get those emails in. So remember, until next week, you are strong enough and you are worth it.